My name is Dr. William, and I need to tell you something. Your doctor almost certainly has never said out loud in an appointment. 50 million Americans wake up to use the bathroom every single night, not once, two, three, sometimes five times. And in 80% of those cases, the bladder is completely fine. It is not the problem. The pills, the supplements, the herbal teas you have been taking for your prostate or your bladder, they are aimed at the wrong organ entirely. Drop your age in the comments below. I want to know exactly who is watching this because your age shapes everything I am about to tell you. Here is what almost no one explains to you in a 1-2 minute office visit. Picture this. 3 in the morning. Your apartment is completely still. You finally sank into that deep, heavy sleep, the good kind. Then the signal comes, faint at first, somewhere at the edge of your awareness. You try to roll over. You try to think about something else, but the pressure builds. You throw back the covers, drop your feet onto the cold floor, and shuffle to the bathroom. You squint against the light. You do what you came to do. By show, you come back to bed, and sleep is gone. Your mind starts running, work, the mortgage, the kids. You lie there for an hour. You finally drift off. Then it happens again. You wake up in the morning, shattered, heavy-headed, pouring coffee into yourself all day just to function. I have seen this in the eyes of hundreds of patients who walked into my practice, and almost every single one of them said the same thing. Doc, it is just age. Everybody gets up at night. Let me be direct with you. That is not true. It is a dangerous assumption, and it needs to be corrected right now. Getting up at night to urinate is not normal. Not at 40, not at 50, not at 70. A healthy body is built differently. At night, your brain produces a specific hormone called antidiuretic hormone, also called vasopressin. Think of it as a factory manager sending a memo to your kidneys. Stop. Night shift. Concentrate the urine, reduce the volume, run in economy mode. That mechanism is precisely what allows a healthy person to sleep 7 or 8 hours straight without a single interruption. When that mechanism breaks down, the condition has a medical name. It is called nocturia, which simply means urinating repeatedly during the night, and it is a diagnosis, not a lifestyle inconvenience. If you get up once a night, that is a warning signal. If you get up twice or more, that is an alarm going off. Every single time you wake up, your pulse jumps, your blood pressure spikes, and you interrupt the phase of deep sleep. The phase where your brain clears out metabolic waste, neurons repair themselves, and your heart genuinely rests. Years of losing that phase is a direct path to high blood pressure, depression, and accelerated brain aging. Published clinical research shows that nocturia stresses the cardiovascular system faster than smoking. That is not an exaggeration. That is data. Now, here is the most important thing I want you to hear right now. When patients come to me with this complaint, most have already decided they know the cause. Men say, "Doctor, it has to be my prostate." Women say, "It is menopause or a chronic bladder infection." They have been drinking diuretic herbal teas, buying supplements for urological health, restricting their water intake so aggressively that their mouth goes dry by 8 in the evening. They stop drinking tea after 6. They go to bed parched, and they still get up at 3 in the morning. Why? Because they are fighting the symptom, not the cause. Let me give you a simple model. Imagine your home's fire alarm goes off in the middle of the night. What do most people do? They tape over the sensor so it stops making noise. The correct response is to find where the fire is. That is exactly how most people treat their nighttime bathroom trips. Your bladder is the sensor. It is signaling that something is happening somewhere else in the body. In 80% of cases, the bladder is perfectly healthy. It is doing exactly what it is supposed to do, emptying what gets put into it. The problem is not the reservoir. The problem is who is filling it during the night and why? And the answer to that question may genuinely surprise you. The culprit is your legs and your heart. Before we get to the mechanism, I need to say something. As a physician with 15 years in clinical practice, there are symptoms that should send you straight to a doctor, not to a video. Know these two. First, blood in your urine without pain. If there is pain and blood together, it is most likely a kidney stone or an acute bladder infection. Miserable, but not immediately life threatening. But if you see dark red or brown urine or blood clots in the toilet bowl and nothing hurts, that is one of the most serious early signs of bladder cancer. In men and women over 50, that finding requires a cystoscopy, a procedure where a doctor examines the inside of the bladder with a small camera. Do not wait. Second, bone pain combined with sudden weight loss. If your nighttime trips are accompanied by aching in the pelvis or lower back, and you have lost 10 to 20 pounds over 2 months without dieting, that pattern is a warning sign that needs medical evaluation immediately. If neither of those applies to you, breathe. You are going to be fine. But the quality of that life is worth protecting. And to do that, we need to understand exactly what type of malfunction is happening in your system. Now, I promised you the mechanism, and I am going to deliver it. But first, let me tell you about someone I will call Anatoly, 5'4", from a mid-sized American city, a solid and self-sufficient man who only came to see a doctor when he was desperate. And when he walked into my office, he was desperate. He carried a thick folder of paperwork, bladder ultrasound, a PSA blood test, which is a prostate cancer marker, and a stack of prescriptions. He told me right away, "Doc, it is my prostate or, God forbid, cancer. Do something. I am losing my mind." He laid out his timeline. First, 1 trip a night, ignored it, then 2, then 3, for the last 6 months, 4 or 5 times every single night. Imagine that. You finally fall asleep and you are yanked back out of it again and again. Anatoly had done everything the internet and advertisers told him to do. He bought the marketed supplements, the herbal blends. Then he reasoned that if he was producing so much urine, he should drink less. He imposed a strict fluid cutoff in the evening. And still, at 2 in the morning, he got up and released half a liter. At 4 in the morning, another half liter. Where was it coming from? He had not drunk a thing. When he sat in front of me with eyes red from sleep deprivation, I looked at his lab work. His PSA was completely normal. He had a mild, first-degree benign prostate enlargement, but that degree does not produce this clinical picture. His bladder was clean. From a urological standpoint, he was nearly healthy. Yet this man was not sleeping and was suffering. So I stopped asking about how he urinated. I started asking about how he lived. "Any shortness of breath?" I asked. "A little," he said. "When I climb to the 3rd floor, I have to stop and catch my breath. But I smoked for 20 years. I only quit a year ago." Did his ring feel tight by evening? Did the elastic on his socks leave a groove in his leg? "Yes," he said. "When I take my socks off, there is an actual indentation in the skin." But doesn't everyone have that? And right then, the picture clicked into place. I told him something that stunned him. "Anatoly, throw out the prostate pills. You do not need a urologist. I am referring you to a cardiologist and a sleep specialist." He looked at me like I had lost my mind. What does my heart have to do with it? I am running to the bathroom, not clutching my chest. But he listened. The cardiologist identified early stage heart failure, hidden with no dramatic symptoms. During the day, Anatoly's heart was working at its limit. It could not fully circulate his blood volume, and fluid was pooling in the tissues of his legs. The sleep specialist found obstructive sleep apnea, brief repeated pauses in breathing during sleep. Sleep apnea on its own disrupts the production of antidiuretic hormone and forces the kidneys to work more actively during nighttime hours. When Anatoly was taking prostate supplements, he was trying to fix a leaking faucet while a pipe had burst in the basement. Now, let me walk you through the physics of what was happening in his body, because this is happening in the majority of people watching this. Picture a plastic bottle half filled with water. When it stands upright, the water sits at the bottom. When you lay it on its side, the the water distributes evenly. Your body works exactly the same way. 16 hours a day, you are vertical, standing, or sitting. Gravity pulls everything downward: blood, lymphatic fluid, the fluid between your cells, all of it toward your feet and ankles. When we are young, our blood vessels behave like strong elastic tubes. The valves inside our veins hold blood firmly and do not let it pool below. The muscles in our legs, when we walk, contract rhythmically and act as a pump, pushing blood upward against gravity. But with age or with a sedentary lifestyle, this mechanism weakens. Veins expand, valves start to leak, and the muscle pump shuts down because we are sitting at a desk or on a couch. Fluid begins to seep out through the vessel walls into the soft tissue surrounding them. In the loose connective tissue of the legs, up to 1.5 liters of water can quietly accumulate. 1.5 liters, that is 3 large mugs of tea sitting in your legs, and you may not even notice it. The sock left a slight groove. So what? Your kidneys do not see that water. It is outside the bloodstream. The kidneys filter only what is circulating in the blood. Now comes the evening. Anatoly gets home from work, has a large dinner, often with something salty, and sits in front of the television. From 7 to 11 at night, 4 hours, his legs are hanging down. Gravity keeps working, fluid keeps accumulating in the tissues of his calves. Then he lies down, and this is where it gets critical. His legs rise to the same level as his kidneys and his heart. Gravity no longer holds the fluid down. All that fluid, the water that collected over 12 hours in the sponge of his leg tissues, begins rapidly returning to the bloodstream. It rushes in a powerful wave toward the center of the body. The volume of circulating blood rises sharply. Imagine someone injected an extra liter of fluid directly into your circulatory system within a single hour. That is not a metaphor. That is precisely what happens to your body every night when you have hidden fluid in your legs. And at this moment, your heart responds. Specifically, a small but powerful hormone called atrial natriuretic peptide, or ANP. When the returning fluid from the legs reaches the heart, the right atrium begins to fill and stretch beyond its normal volume. The heart recognizes that the system is overloaded, so it releases ANP into the bloodstream, a chemical telegram to the kidneys. The message is simple: dump the excess fluid immediately or I will fail. Your kidneys shift into emergency mode. They filter the blood at an accelerated rate, expelling water and sodium to protect the heart from overload. The result is predictable. Within an hour of lying down, your bladder is full. You get up, go to the bathroom, come back. But the fluid from your legs has not finished mobilizing. The process continues. 2 hours later, full bladder again, and the cycle repeats until morning. That is why Anatoly, who had not drunk a drop of water since 6 in the evening, was running to the bathroom all night. He was quite literally drinking through his legs. No prostate supplement, no herbal blend could stop it because those interventions were targeting the completely wrong organ. Treating your bladder with pills when the cause is in your heart and gravity is exactly the same as taping over a fire alarm sensor. Your body is trying to save you, and you are trying to stop it. Now, before we go further, I want to take a moment. We have already covered something that almost no one explains in a 1 to 2 minute office visit. You now understand the 3 types of nighttime urinary problems, the hidden fluid mechanism in your legs, and why Anatoly's prostate was never the issue. Everything I just walked you through, the medications that deserve a second look, the way food functions as medicine for this exact problem, the full body manual for what changes after 70, it is all developed in depth inside the complete Senior Health Vault. Think of it as the full plain English guides your office visit never had time for. You will find the link in the description, and you can scan the code on your screen right now. The code will stay up in the corner for the rest of this video. Now, stay with me, because what I am going to show you next is the specific evening routine that gave Anatoly his sleep back. And it takes 5 minutes and costs nothing. In urology, nighttime urinary problems divide into three fundamentally different types. The treatment for each is different, and what helps one type can actively make another worse. Type 1 is global polyuria. That means producing too much urine overall. You are going frequently, both day and night, and each time the volume is large. There are usually two causes. You are simply drinking enormous amounts of fluid throughout the day, or you have diabetes, either type 2, where glucose pulls water with it, or a hormone disruption in the brain. In this type, urine is usually pale, nearly odorless, and you go just as often during the day as at night. This type needs a blood sugar test and an endocrinologist. Type 2 is nocturnal polyuria. This is the most insidious type, and the one found in 60 to 70% of people over 50. During the day, you live completely normally, but the moment you lie down, the nightmare begins. 3 or 4 trips per night, each time a full bladder, large volume. In the morning, you genuinely cannot figure out where it all came from. You barely drank anything after dinner. This is what was happening to Anatoly. Your kidneys have switched their filtration activity to nighttime hours. They run at half capacity during the day and at double speed at night. And if this is your type, the bladder has nothing to do with it. Treating the bladder is useless. Type 3 is a reservoir problem. Here, urges are frequent, sudden, and urgent. It feels like you will not make it. You rush to the bathroom, sit down, and almost nothing comes out. A few drops. 40 minutes later, the same storm. The problem here is the bladder itself. It has lost the ability to stretch to a normal capacity, or its nerve signals have become hypersensitive. The trigger fires at 50 milliliters of urine, even though the normal capacity before urgency should be 200 to 300 milliliters. This occurs with benign prostatic enlargement in men, overactive bladder in women, chronic bladder infection, or stones. So to lock that in, frequent and large volume both day and night, that is global polyuria. Fine during the day, flooding at night, that is nocturnal polyuria. Urgent and frequent urges, but tiny output, that is a reservoir problem. Identified your type? Good. Keep it in mind. Now, you might ask, food affects this process too, right? Absolutely. In ways that will genuinely surprise you, there are foods that act like a delayed switch on your kidneys, programming them to do most of their work at night, and you are probably eating them at dinner, sincerely believing they are harmless or even healthy. When I ask patients what they eat in the evenings, most say something like, "Doctor, I watch what I eat. No pickled things, no salty snacks. I am being careful." Then it turns out dinner was a sandwich with cheese and cured sausage, or crackers and cream cheese before bed. Write this down. Hidden salt. We have been trained to think of salt as something that comes out of a shaker. But 80% of the salt most people consume comes from processed and packaged food. Cheese, cured meats, sausages, mayonnaise, canned goods, bread. 100 grams of ordinary hard cheese contains as much sodium as an entire bag of potato chips. You do not taste that sharp saltiness. It is masked by fat and flavor, but it is there. Here's how it works against you overnight. You eat a cheese sandwich at 7 in the evening, the sodium enters your blood. Your body immediately holds on to every molecule of water it can to dilute it. This is called osmotic pressure. In the evening, you are not running to the bathroom. The salt is keeping water locked inside your blood vessels and tissues. But overnight, your kidneys detect the accumulated sodium and begin actively excreting it. And sodium acts like a magnet. It pulls water behind it. To flush out 1 gram of excess sodium, the kidneys must run a significant volume of fluid through themselves. The result? You wake up in the middle of the night, not because you drank too much, you are eliminating last night's cheese. The second enemy is evening sugar. I had a cup of tea with a few cookies, a small apple before bed. What is the harm? It is vitamins. It is natural. Let me explain the biochemistry. Simple carbohydrates in the evening cause a rapid spike in blood glucose. Your pancreas fires off a burst of insulin. Insulin, beyond its primary role in managing blood sugar, signals your kidneys to retain sodium and water. First comes retention. Then, 2 to 3 hours later, right around the time you have fallen asleep, blood sugar drops sharply and your kidneys switch to active fluid excretion. Beyond this, if you have even a degree of insulin resistance, a state where your body's cells no longer respond efficiently to insulin, and this affects a substantial portion of people over 40 with no obvious symptoms. Elevated blood sugar acts as an osmotic diuretic. Sugar itself pulls water out of your cells and into the urine. You get the biological equivalent of a water pill simply by eating a cluster of grapes or a slice of watermelon before bed. The third false friend is alcohol. Many people tell me, Doc, I have a small glass of wine or a beer before bed. It helps me sleep harder. I do not even hear the urge to go. This is one of the most widespread forms of self deception I encounter in my practice, and here is why. Alcohol does help you fall asleep faster, it acts as a sedative, but it is simultaneously one of the most powerful blockers of antidiuretic hormone, the vasopressin we discussed at the start. Remember the factory manager memo to the kidneys? Slow down, work in economy mode, concentrate the urine. Alcohol cancels that signal entirely. Your kidneys run at full filtration speed with no restriction applied. The sedative effect may allow you to sleep through the first urge. The bladder fills and you do not wake, but it keeps filling until the second urge becomes impossible to ignore. And your sleep quality throughout the night is profoundly poor without the deep, restorative, slow wave sleep your brain and heart require. You wake up completely exhausted and with a bursting bladder. The outcome is worse than if you had not had a drink at all. Now, let us talk about what actually helps. The foods that protect and calm the system. First on my list, raw pumpkin seeds. Not roasted, not salted, not sugar coated, raw green pumpkin seeds. I say this not as someone reading from an advertisement, but as a clinician who sees the outcome in actual patients. Pumpkin seeds contain zinc and magnesium in a highly absorbable form. Magnesium relaxes smooth muscle, including the detrusor, which is the muscular wall of the bladder, helping it expand to a larger volume before triggering the urge to void. The seeds also contain phytosterols, plant-based compounds that strengthen the pelvic floor, support prostate tissue in men, and help with pelvic organ support in women. A handful, about 30 grams of raw pumpkin seeds daily. That is the cheapest and most effective bladder health habit you can build right now. Second, cranberry. Not bottled cranberry juice cocktail from the store. That product typically contains more sugar than soda, and sugar is on our enemies list. What you need is the actual berry, frozen or fresh, or a standardized cranberry extract from a pharmacy. Cranberries contain compounds called proanthocyanidins, molecules that prevent bacteria from adhering to the inner lining of the bladder, even in people without a current acute infection. Many adults over 40 carry a low-grade bacterial presence in the bladder that chronically irritates nerve endings. The bladder becomes hypersensitive. A small amount of urine arrives and it screams, "Empty me now." Cranberry reduces that chronic background irritation and calms the lining. Add a handful to oatmeal or to unsweetened tea. Third, adequate dietary fiber. The connection here is purely mechanical. Chronic constipation means a chronically bloated colon pressing against your bladder. They share the same pelvic space, and space is limited. An overloaded colon behaves like an aggressive neighbor. It squeezes your bladder constantly. The bladder, compressed from outside, signals fullness even when it is barely a quarter full. Vegetables, cabbage, greens, zucchini, bran. These regulate bowel function. An empty colon at bedtime gives your bladder room to expand properly during the night. It can fill to a reasonable volume before it needs attention, and it will not bother you ahead of schedule. Practical nutrition summary: eliminate hidden salt in the evening, remove cheese, cured meats, and condiments from dinner. Eliminate evening sugar, no fruit, baked goods, or sweetened drinks after 6. Put down the nightcap. Add a handful of raw pumpkin seeds during the day and a small portion of unsweetened cranberry. Anatoly did only that. He replaced his dinner of sausage and cheese with a vegetable and chicken salad and cut the evening tea with cookies. Just from that one change, he eliminated one nighttime bathroom trip out of 5. Progress, but not victory, because food is the foundation. It changes the biochemistry. But if your venous valves are failing and your vessels have lost their elasticity, nutrition alone cannot override the physics of fluid. We need one more layer of tools. The code is still there on your screen if you want to explore the full protocol in depth. But right now, I want to show you the most practical part of this entire discussion. This brings us to the simple 3-part daily protocol I call the golden protocol. Morning, day, and evening, 5 minutes total per day. This became the final turning point for Anatoly, and I want to walk you through it exactly. Part 1, morning, starting the pump. It begins the moment you open your eyes. When you get out of bed, do not head straight for the coffee. Stop for 30 seconds. After a night of rest, lymphatic fluid has thickened and pooled. We need to move it from the very start of the day so that by evening, your legs are primed and ready, not prone to accumulating fluid. Do what is known as a vibrational heel drop exercise. Stand upright, feet shoulder width apart, rise up onto your toes, just 1 to 2 centimeters, and then let your heels drop back down to the floor with a light, firm impact. You should feel a mild vibration traveling from your calves up through your thighs and into your abdomen. Repeat this 30 times at roughly 1 drop per second. That is 30 seconds of your morning. What is happening physiologically? Inside your veins are small valves, folds of tissue that prevent blood from flowing backward and pooling downward. With age and inactivity, these valves can become sluggish and start to fail. The rhythmic vibration of this exercise literally shakes them back into action, encouraging blood to move upward against gravity. That is your best prevention for evening leg swelling, and it starts at 7 in the morning. If standing is difficult for you, painful knees, back problems, there is a floor version. Without getting out of bed, raise both your arms and legs straight up and shake them with small, rapid movements like a beetle flipped on its back. It looks ridiculous. The clinical result is entirely real. It activates lymphatic drainage within 60 seconds. Part 2, daytime, the waterfall method. One firm rule. Picture a graph of when you drink fluids throughout the day. For most people, it looks like a hill with the peak in the evening. They come home from work and pour 3 cups of tea back to back. We need to shift that hill far to the left. 70% of your total daily fluid intake should happen before 4 in the afternoon. A glass of water immediately after waking. A water bottle at your desk, tea and soup at lunch. After 4, you turn the tap down, not off. Thirst is dangerous. It thickens the blood and raises clotting risk. But after 4, only small sips as needed to relieve dryness. And one practical sodium control step. Remove the salt shaker from your table entirely. Salt food only in the pot during cooking. That single act reduces daily sodium consumption by 20 to 30% without changing what you eat. Part 3, evening, the critical move. Here is the part worth watching this entire video for. Approximately 1 to 1.5 hours before bed, while you are watching television, reading, or simply resting, do what I call the lazy elevation. Lie down on the sofa or on the floor. Place your legs up on the armrest of the couch, the back of a chair, or simply prop them against the wall. One requirement only. Your heels must be higher than the level of your heart. An angle of roughly 45 degrees works well. There is no need to raise your legs perfectly vertical. That strains the neck. Just elevated, comfortable, and supported. Stay in that position for 15 to 20 minutes. You can read, scroll your phone, listen to a podcast. What happens during those 20 minutes? Gravity now works for you instead of against you. It pushes fluid from the sponge of your lower leg tissue back into the bloodstream. Blood flows toward the kidneys. Your heart receives the signal of increased volume and releases ANP. Your kidneys shift into active filtration mode. Your bladder begins to fill, but you are awake. You are sitting in control of your evening, fully alert. 30 to 40 minutes after you finish the exercise, you will feel the need to urinate. You will go and you will release 300 to 400 milliliters, the exact volume that would otherwise have woken you at 3 in the morning. You are wringing out your legs deliberately before you sleep. You are giving your kidneys their workload in the evening while you are awake so that at night they can rest. If you have pronounced visible swelling in your legs, add graduated compression stockings. Do not sleep in them. Put on first grade compression knee highs when you get home in the evening and wear them until your shower before bed. They simply prevent fluid from pooling in the lower leg tissues during those evening hours. One final piece, strengthening the valve. When you are already in bed, lights out, eyes closed, do 20 to 30 repetitions of Kegel exercises, but 90% of people do this incorrectly. They squeeze their buttocks, tighten their abdomen, clench their thighs. That accomplishes nothing. Here's how to do it correctly. Imagine you are trying to prevent passing gas, or imagine pulling your perineum, the region between your legs, upward like an elevator rising from the ground floor to the 5th floor. Your abdomen must remain completely soft, buttocks relaxed, only the pelvic floor works, the internal muscle group invisible from the outside. Contract, hold for 3 seconds, slowly release, 20 to 30 repetitions. This exercise sends a signal through the nerve endings of the pelvic floor directly to your brain. Muscles toned, valve holds, the system can rest. The neurogenic overactivity of the bladder, the state where it fires an alarm at every small sensation, decreases. The bladder stops panicking at minimal urine volumes and begins operating in a normal calibrated mode. That is the complete protocol. Morning 30 heel drops, daytime 70% of fluids consumed before 4, evening 15 minutes, legs elevated, then bathroom, then lie down and do the elevator with your pelvic floor. Anatoly started this with undisguised skepticism. Doc, once, not 5 times. After 1 more month of consistent practice, he was sleeping through the night. His kidneys stopped running a night shift because he was giving them their work in the evening at a time that suited him. His cardiologist noted at the next visit that the swelling in his legs had improved substantially. His heart was working with noticeably less strain. This method works because it is built on physiology, not wishful thinking. It is built on physics, biochemistry, and neuroscience. It requires exactly one thing: consistency. This is not a pill you swallow and forget about. You do this every day, and that is precisely what makes it genuinely powerful. Now, your age matters here more than you might think. The fluid redistribution mechanism I described becomes progressively more pronounced as the venous system ages. Venous valve competence decreases, vascular wall elasticity diminishes, and cardiac reserve narrows. Research consistently shows that in people over 50, nocturnal polyuria driven by peripheral fluid mobilization occurs roughly 3 times more often than in those under 40. How old are you? Drop your age in the comments below and tell me which part of this protocol you are going to try first. I read every single one, and your answers directly shape what I cover in future videos. Here is your concrete 5-step plan for tonight. Step 1, do the thumb test on your shin bone right now. Sit down, expose your lower leg, and find your shin bone, the hard surface along the front of your leg with no muscle covering it. Place the pad of your thumb against that bone, roughly 4 to 6 inches above your ankle. Press firmly and hold for 10 to 15 seconds. Remove your thumb and run another finger across the same spot. If the skin immediately springs back flat, no significant fluid. If your thumb left a pit, a dent that does not fill in for several seconds, you have located a hidden reservoir of fluid that is moving through your kidneys every night. Step 2, on your next day off, measure your urine output separately for daytime and nighttime using any container with volume markings. If your nighttime output exceeds 33% of your total daily output, that is officially nocturnal polyuria. Your kidneys have inverted their schedule because of fluid redistribution, not because of your bladder, not because of your prostate. Step 3, remove the salt shaker from your table tonight. Replace your dinner of processed meat and cheese with something without hidden sodium. Step 4, 1 hour before bed, lie down and put your legs up on the back of your couch or against the wall for 15 minutes. Step 5, before sleep, do 20 to 30 correct Kegel repetitions. Only the pelvic floor moves. Everything else is relaxed. And if the pit in your leg stayed after the test, if you notice shortness of breath climbing a flight of stairs, if your socks leave grooves in your skin by evening, do not go to a urologist first. Go to a cardiologist and a vascular specialist. That is the critical path. Never stop a medication on your own. Bring it to your doctor. And please remember, everything I have shared with you today is educational. It is the kind of conversation I wish every patient had time to have. It is not a substitute for personalized medical advice from your own physician who knows your full history. Your body is not broken. Your bladder is not your enemy. It is a signal light. Now you know how to turn it off by addressing the cause, not by smashing the bulb. In my 15 years of practice, I have watched what happens when people treat the alarm instead of the fire. Most of the time, the damage was entirely preventable. The protocol I just described requires no prescription, no procedure, and no significant cost beyond a pair of compression stockings. It requires only the understanding of how your body actually works and the discipline to use that knowledge. Your doctor is not going to walk you through this at your next appointment. There is no time in a 1-2 minute office visit to explain fluid mechanics and pelvic floor neurology. That is what this channel exists for. If this video gave you something real, subscribe right now. Every person who subscribes makes it more likely that the next person who needs this information actually finds it. And I made a video that explains exactly what happens to your heart during sleep and how it connects to the other symptoms most people over 65 are quietly ignoring. I will put it right here on the screen. Go watch that one next.